Okay, so today we're going to be doing a pull workout. We got about 3 back exercises I'm going to run through with you, 2 rear delt, and then we're going to finish off with a couple bicep exercises. I'm starting with this machine, lat pull down, just to change things up. I've been lately using just the traditional cable lat pull down. I'm using this machine. I like the resistance profile of this actual machine because I actually find it heavier in this top or stretched position. And then as I pull down, it actually gets a little bit easier. So it kind of aligns better with the strength profile of the actual lats. Whereas if you use just the regular cable lat pull down, you may notice that there's almost no resistance or not much resistance towards the top part of the movement or the beginning range. And then at that end range, it's really hard. That's mainly just because you're just using a pulley system, whereas this is using a cam. So the way they've designed it allows it to be heavier towards the lengthened beginning position. And then as you pull down, it gets a little bit easier. I did 2 warm-up sets. I'm probably gonna do about 3, maybe 4, depending on how I feel, working sets. And again, the goal is to just go straight to failure. So I'm gonna be including partial reps, but not necessarily lengthened partials. I'm probably just gonna stay more in the mid-range partial reps. Actually, because it's heavier towards the top, I can stay more in the lengthened state and do partial reps. Whereas if I were to do partials on a regular cable lat pull down, it would just kind of defeat the purpose. What I'm thinking about when I'm performing these lat pull downs or any lat pull down, a few things is I'm holding slightly wider than shoulder width. I just find that to be comfortable for me. You don't have to hold too wide. You can hold shoulder width is completely fine. My goal is to target a bit more lat than upper back. So I want to be upright the entire time. I don't want to be leaning back and pulling in, almost doing like a high row or something like that. Because to me, that defeats the purpose. If I want to train upper back, which I will be doing later on, I'm just going to do a horizontal row with a wider grip. So again, staying upright, keeping elbows tucked in. And then as I come down, I don't want my elbows flaring back behind me. And I also don't want my shoulders to be rolling forward. So I'm driving elbows and shoulders down towards my hips, picking that chest up, bringing my chest towards the ceiling, squeezing my lats, squeezing that upper part of my back as well, but mainly the lats. So again, elbow drive in towards my hips, keeping wrists and elbows stacked the entire time and maintaining that upright position is key for this. I'm also going to be minimizing momentum and trying to control the eccentric as hard as possible. Full stretch, squeeze. Shout out to Ben for giving me them. My other ones were really stinky because they have on the inside of them, they put this like stupid foam. This one's cut out. These are like a cheap strap, but put this foam on the inside, and then when you sweat, it's gross. It smells really bad. So mine were stinky. All right, we got our last set. On this last set, I'm gonna go to failure with partials, and then I'm gonna do a drop set, just one drop set, again into lengthened partials towards the end of that second drop of failure. Minimal rest in between each drop. You can take a little bit of rest. It doesn't have to be like go, 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 because again, my goal with every single movement is to keep the reps near perfect. I know they're not gonna be perfect, especially when I get close to failure, but I'm not so concerned with taking or minimizing the rest time just to go for an arbitrary reason. I wanna keep the reps perfect. So if that means getting maybe an extra 20 seconds of rest in between the drop, I'm okay with that. I'm gonna drop it by about 100 pounds. Catch my breath. And my goal is to minimize the momentum of this movement. So I really wanna keep my hips on the seat the entire time. I'm not letting my butt lift off the pad, using my body weight to initiate the rep. I'm initiating every rep with my lats. Okay, that's it. That's it, we're gonna move on. So because I started with more of a frontal plane movement, where I'm working in this plane, I'm now gonna train the lats in more of a sagittal plane. The reason that is because it's gonna allow me a little more of a stretch. So I'm able to actually use my rib cage and reach forward and stretch a large part of my lats. And then as I drive, I'm actually gonna be focusing primarily on those mid and lower lats with this movement. So I'm gonna be holding a neutral grip, more narrow. And the goal of this movement is my setup. I wanna make sure that this working arm is aligned with this bar path or the path of the actual machine. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm gonna slide over, shift my body weight over, so now I'm in line, keeping that elbow down towards the ground. Initiate every rep by reaching forward and then driving that elbow and shoulder down towards the ground. Keeping that elbow. 1, We got third set. Again, making sure my body weight is shifted over to the side that I'm working on, lining everything up. I'm not crunching in on the way down, keeping my chest up tall the entire time, making sure my hip and torso are as stable as possible so I can create and generate as much force in my lat. Okay, we have one more working set. I've been doing lately for my own training, been incorporating a little higher volume. I used to do higher volume way back in the day, and then I stopped and I started doing a little less volume. I've incorporated much higher volume for each session. And I think personally that works better for me. I just noticed I get much better stimulus, much better growth hitting it that way as opposed to reducing it. I also recover pretty quickly anyway, so I can get away with doing a lot and more frequently throughout the week. So we've got one more set. And I'm just gonna go heavier on this last set. Not really focused on how many reps I get. Obviously, I'm keeping a mental track. But I'll probably hit around 8 to 10 on this last set and then pull back for some partials. May or may not do a drop set. A little hot. Okay, we're gonna do a drop, but I'm gonna do both arms at the same time just to fully burn out my lats. Again, I'm okay with a little bit of rest time in between, because I'm not trying to just ego my way through the set. I really want to engage my lats and generate as much force and tension on them as possible. Okay. So because I don't have my other arm to brace, I'm just going to lean into it so it's a slightly different angle. Okay, that's it. We're gonna move on. We're gonna do a seated row now, going a little wider, more in a horizontal plane. This is gonna allow us to recruit and target a little more rear delt, which is gonna be a nice transition because then after that, we're gonna actually train the rear delts. All right. You know what? Forgot. Gym etiquette. Can't leave the weights on. All right, we're gonna be using this prime seated row. The reason I like this one is because if you look here, you can adjust the plates on either one of these posts, and it's gonna dictate kind of which part of the resistance profile or strength curve you're gonna be targeting the most. So if I have them in the middle, I'm gonna be primarily working more of that mid-range. So the peak resistance is gonna be through the mid part of the actual movement, which is actually fine because it better aligns with my actual lats in the movement. But as the sets progress, I'll probably be throwing some plates on the bottom. On the top, because I actually want to train more of that lengthened range. So when the weight gets heavier and I want to do more partials, I want that beginning range to be loaded for those partials primarily. I don't want it to be too light. So this is going to be the transition from our upper mid back and rear delts to allow us to go and train the rear delts. So I'm going to have a position where I'm actually going to be more upright or back and allowing myself to retract as far back as I possibly can, driving those elbows back behind me, keeping them kind of flared out at a 45-degree angle, because again, I want to target those rear delts. So I'm initiating every rep, getting that stretch, protracting, pushing my shoulders forward, and then retracting, driving everything back, driving those elbows as far back behind me. I'm driving my sternum into the pad the entire time. So as I come through, I'm pushing my chest into that pad. Okay. We're gonna do 3 sets total with partials at the end of the last set. We'll do a drop, same thing, as everything else. 3 sets for this one to failure. Partial reps, drop the weight, go again, partial reps, move on. But like I was saying, how you can adjust the resistance profile. So when I do those drops, the first set, I'm just keeping most of the resistance in that mid-range. When I drop it though, I'm gonna take off a plate, but I'm actually gonna add a bit more weight. So not much, that 25-pound to the, sorry, I keep getting them mixed up, to the top here, which is gonna allow me to work more of that beginning and then mid-range. And then drop another plate and partials and move on. Now we're dropping it. But I'm gonna place this quarter on the top here so I can still load a bit more of that beginning range, the lengthened part of my lat. Okay, we're gonna go on. We got rear delts, and then we're gonna finish off with some biceps. If the video seems a little choppy, the camera that I'm using keeps overheating. It's a new camera, but it just gets really hot, so then it starts to overheat and then shut off. So bear with me. So what I'm doing here, I'm using this incline bench. I'm purposely resting my chest on it and rounding my back, my upper back, because that's gonna help almost inhibit my scapulus from fully retracting, which is what I want, because when I'm training my rear delt, I don't really care to work the rhomboids and the traps as much. I wanna try to isolate as much of the rear delt as possible. So if I can minimize my scapulus from retracting, majority of that tension is gonna go into my rear delt. So that's kind of why I'm using this. 1, for stability, and 2, to help round my back and kind of inhibit the retraction of my scapulus. So I want to initiate every rep by pushing these weights down towards the ground. I'm not shrugging back, pushing down, opening up my mid back. And then as I open, or as I initiate the movement, I'm thinking about opening out and away from me. Controlling that eccentric. And I'm minimizing any swinging in the bottom here, so I'm not just gaining momentum. Got one more set. I'm doing them seated, but I'm angling my torso. I'm leaning to the one side. You don't have to do that, but the reason I'm doing it is because if you do have bigger back or lats, or if your arms naturally kind of flare out, if you just rest and your arms kind of flare out, then naturally my arms want to be in this position. It's very restrictive for me to keep that arm pressed against my body. So if I let them just flare and then I naturally lean to the one side, to the working side, this allows me to keep my bicep and this upper part of my arm aligned with that line of force, which is gravity, which just goes straight down. So again, that's why I'm leaning. And then second, I want to make sure that my shoulder and this upper part of my arm is locked and stable the entire time. So I'm not swinging that weight up, keeping it locked, almost using my lat to and be engaged to keep that shoulder stable. And then as I curl, I'm literally just thinking about bringing my forearm to my bicep.